Chosen one, there is something in your life right now that God has placed his hands over, and he has said, do not touch it. You know exactly what it is. The situation that lives in the back of your mind at 3 in the morning. The message drafted 17 times and never sent. The conversation rehearsed in the silence between what you say out loud and what you actually mean. Every part of you wants to move, to respond, to hold on before it slips. But something deeper, something that sounds less like anxiety and more like authority, has been saying, be still. I need you to hear this today, because what I am about to share with you is not a message about patience. This is a message about a specific divine law, one that God activates in the lives of the people he is closest to, in the moments directly before something that cannot be manufactured by human hands. When God says, don't touch it, he is not abandoning you to silence. He is saying, my hands are already on this. And what happens in the invisible realm, the moment a chosen one genuinely releases their grip, what begins to move, to assemble, to shift on your behalf, without your effort and beyond your design, is the part that will shock you. You were not led to this message by accident. Something placed this before you in this specific season because you are standing at the edge of one of two choices. And what you do in the next 48 hours will determine which version of your story you are about to live. Stay with me. Everything I share in this message today is free. But if, at any point, your spirit tells you there is something more, you need a specific tool, a resource to support what you are building in this season, you will find it in the description and the pinned comment below. Only if you feel led. Before we go any further, I want to tell you exactly what you are going to carry with you when this message is finished. You are going to understand what God is actually doing behind the scenes of your stillness, not in vague language, but in 3 specific things happening on your behalf right now. You are going to receive 2 words from the ancient Hebrew that will permanently change the way you hear the command to wait. And at the very end of this message, before it closes, I am going to speak something over your life that I believe you will carry with you long after the sound fades. I need you here for all of it. Stay until the end. If you can, I want you to do one simple thing right now. Not complicated. Just this. Let the weight of everywhere else fall for a little while. You do not have to be somewhere special. You do not need to prepare anything or hold anything or do anything with your hands. Just be where you are, and let this be the one thing in front of you. You have been carrying a lot. You have been managing and monitoring and watching for signs, and inside all of that motion, you may have forgotten how to simply be still. So before we go any further, just breathe. Once. A real breath. Let this space be yours for the next while. Now, let me show you something. There is a command that God gives to the people he is most carefully watching. Not the ones who have already arrived at everything they were promised. Not the ones who have it all together. He gives this command to the ones who are right in the middle of something, in the tension of something that has not yet resolved, in the thick of a situation that is costing them something real every single day. And the command is this: do not touch it. Most people, when they first hear those words, feel them as a kind of abandonment, as if God has turned away from the very thing that is breaking them open. But that is not what is happening, not even close. God says, don't touch it precisely because his hands are already there. And what you would disrupt, if you reached in with yours, is a process already underway that you simply cannot see from where you are standing. Now, and this matters, how do you know if this command is the one on you right now? There are 5 signs, and I want to name them carefully, because most chosen ones are already living inside these experiences and have been calling them by the wrong names for too long. The first sign is something you feel in the body. When you think about moving toward the situation, when you imagine sending the message, making the call, saying the thing that has been building inside you, there is a tightening. In the chest, in the throat, somewhere in the space between your intention and your action, something makes the forward motion feel wrong, even as your mind is building a case for it. You have probably been calling this anxiety. But anxiety pushes you toward the thing. This is different. This is your body receiving a signal that the path forward is not yours to take right now. The second sign is that your mind has become louder than usual in the quiet. Not racing in the way of panic, but circling in the way of something that needs to be processed. The same thoughts returning, the same scenarios playing on repeat. This is not disorder. This is spiritual weight, moving through a system that is trying to find its footing, and the noise is just the sound of that weight shifting inside you. The third sign, environments and voices that used to feel neutral now feel draining. Specifically, the people who keep saying, "You need to do something. You cannot just let this sit. You have to respond." If those voices have started pulling energy from you rather than adding to it, pay attention to that. Something in you is standing guard. Your spirit is protecting a frequency it knows is important. The fourth sign is intuition arriving in flashes, not long-reasoned conclusions. Just sudden, clean moments of knowing a sense that it is not time, that you are supposed to wait, that something is approaching that has not arrived yet. You cannot explain it to anyone else. But it keeps returning, and the fact that you cannot explain it is not proof that it is wrong. It is evidence that it comes from somewhere that does not speak in explanations. And the fifth sign. Some of you are going to recognize this immediately. The pattern around you has been saying, "Stop." Doors that should have opened have stayed closed. Timing that should have worked has not come together. And every time you pressed forward, something intervened. Something redirected you without your permission. That is not opposition working against you. That is protection working for you. That is a hand on your shoulder saying, "Not this way, not yet. Wait just a little longer." If 3 or more of those signs are active in your life right now, you are not in a random delay. You are under a specific divine directive. And let me show you exactly what I mean. There is a moment recorded in one of the oldest written accounts of divine intervention that I keep returning to. A crowd of people exhausted in the way that comes from being pushed too long, terrified in the way that comes from seeing absolutely no way forward, with an army pressing in at their backs and uncrossable water stretching out in front of them. Every rational thought says, choose a direction. Fight, run, do something before it is too late. But the man leading them speaks words that should have been impossible in that moment. He says, do not be afraid, stand firm, and see the salvation that is coming. And then, nothing. No battle strategy, no dramatic gesture, just be still. What happened next was not gradual. The water moved. A path opened through what had been designed as a trap. And what most people focus on when they hear this account is the parting of the water, and they call that the miracle. But the miracle did not begin when the water moved. The miracle began the moment the people stopped trying to save themselves. That is the sequence. Human stillness first, divine movement after. Not as a reward for patience, but as a response to space. The space that opens when we release what we have been gripping and trust that something greater is already in motion. And into that truth, into the full weight of it, I sense the Father placing something very specific over this moment. I hear these words being released for you right now. The situation you have been trying to hold together was in my hands before you ever knew it was unraveling. Your reaching for it has not been wrong, it came from love. But I am asking you, in this moment, to uncurl your fingers. What I am building in the space your open hands create cannot be built any other way. Do not touch it. Let me show you what happens next. That is the beginning of the answer. But it is only the beginning, because knowing the signs, recognizing the command, that is only the surface. The real question, the one that will change how you move through every single day of the season you are in, is what God is actually doing while you are standing still. And that is where this gets extraordinary. Let me slow down for a moment, just briefly. You have been listening, and you have been receiving, and I think somewhere underneath the teaching, something in you is sitting with the real weight of this, the weight of how long it has been going on. How many times you have talked yourself back from the edge of reacting, how much energy it has taken to hold your peace in front of people who do not understand why you have gone quiet, how tired the stillness has made you, even while you know it is the right thing. I see that. I want to say it out loud. The restraint you have been practicing imperfectly, with trembling hands, sometimes barely, has not been wasted, not a single moment of it. We are about to go deeper, and what comes next is the part that changes everything. There is a word in the ancient Hebrew that, translated into our language, has lost something essential. In the 46th Psalm, in the words most people recognize as "be still and know that I am God," the word for still is Raphah. And Raphah does not mean sit quietly and do nothing. Raphah means to let go. To release what your hands have been gripping, to drop what you have been white-knuckling because you believed no one else would catch it if you did. It is an active command, not toward passivity, but toward trust. The stillness God is asking of you is not the stillness of someone who has given up. It is the stillness of someone who has decided that the hands holding this situation are more capable than their own. And that decision requires more courage than acting ever would. Now, here is what happens in the space behind that posture, while you are Raphah, still, while your hands are open and your grip is finally released. God is doing three specific things that you cannot see. The first, He is removing from your path things that would have hurt you if you had moved when you wanted to. There were complications you would have walked directly into. There were traps you could not have seen from where you were standing. And your stillness, what felt like nothing happening, was actually God clearing what was ahead of you before you arrived. The second, He is building. Actively, specifically, building. There is a promise in the ancient text that speaks of a table being prepared not after the opposition is gone, not when things become easier, but in the very presence of the people who have been working against you. That is what is being constructed right now in the season you are in. The table is being set. You have not arrived at it yet, only because the preparation is not finished. And the timing of your arrival is not yours to decide. The third, God is positioning the people who are on their way to you. Every right connection, every alignment that is about to shift your life is moving toward a specific location, the location you are holding right now. If you had stepped out of this position when the frustration told you to, you would have missed the moment of contact. Your stillness is not keeping you from your destiny. It is holding you inside the coordinates of your destiny. Think about an eagle in a storm. It does not beat its wings faster to climb. What it does looks almost like surrender. It spreads its wings wide and goes completely still, and an invisible current, a thermal rising from far below, lifts it higher than any amount of effort could have taken it. The stillness is the technique, not the sign of defeat, the deployment of strength in the only direction that actually works. Your Raphah right now, the open hands, the released grip that is wings spread wide, and the thermal is already forming beneath you. Esther understood this. When she was positioned within reach of the most powerful person in her world, she did not move on her own schedule. She waited, she prepared. She held back until the exact moment she was designed to step forward. And when she moved, not a second too early and not a moment too late, an entire people was preserved because one woman understood something that most people never learn. Timing is not weakness. Timing is the most precise weapon available to a chosen one. Every time you held your tongue when everything in you wanted to speak, every time you chose silence when silence cost you something real, every time you walked away from a confrontation you could have won on points but would have lost on purpose, every time you deleted the message, every time you sat in the discomfort of being misunderstood by someone who mattered and said nothing, I need you to hear this clearly. Those were not failures. Those were not moments of weakness. Those were moments of Raphah, movements of extraordinary spiritual strength, and not one of them has been unseen. Stay with me through what comes next, because what I have not yet shown you, the deepest layer of what is happening and what I am going to speak over you before this closes, that is the reason you were brought to this message today. The eagle spreads its wings and trusts the thermal it cannot see. That is the practice we have been building toward, and it requires something that most people discover they need when they finally stop reaching for the situation with their hands, a way to ground the mind in the frequency of stillness rather than the noise of survival. There is something I want to mention briefly before we continue. A tool that some people walking through exactly this kind of season have found meaningful. It is called the Genius Song, a 7-minute audio track designed to support your brain in reaching a specific frequency, a state of quiet clarity rather than survival noise. I will come back to it in more depth later in this message. If you feel anything stir when I say that, the link is in the description and the pinned comment below. Only go there if you feel led. There is no pressure. What we are building here does not wait on a purchase. What I want to show you right now is something that shifts the ground under everything we have covered so far. You have been listening to this conversation under a specific assumption. I want to name it clearly because it has been shaping how you feel about your stillness in ways that may not be accurate. The assumption is this: that your stillness is the absence of something, that you are doing nothing while you wait, that you are standing somewhere quiet while the battle happens elsewhere without you, that your restraint means you are uninvolved. That is not what is happening when a chosen one goes still, when you pull back, when you release the grip, when you stop sending the messages and stop forcing the conversations and stop trying to manage what is no longer in your hands. Something shifts in the spiritual architecture of the situation. The opposition loses its target. The energy that was being pulled into the conflict begins to redirect. What was growing louder starts to quiet, and not because you won an argument or made the right move, because you stepped out of the arena. And in your absence, the conflict cannot sustain itself the way it could when you were in it. What looked like cowardice was actually courage. What looked like defeat was actually a strategic withdrawal. What looked like silence was actually the loudest prayer heaven had received from you in a long time. And what looked like losing was actually the first moment of your positioning for what comes next. You were not doing nothing. You were doing the one thing that the situation could not unfold without. You were creating space for God to enter in a way that your own presence had been, without your knowing it filling. And into that understanding, I hear the Father speaking something specific over you right now. Hear this: I was never waiting for you to act. I was waiting for you to trust. From the moment you began to release what you had been holding, I was already released to move on your behalf. What you thought was a delay in my answer was actually the sound of the answer being constructed. I have been working in the silence you gave me, and what I have built there in the space that your open hands created is beyond what you went in asking for. The miracle did not begin when the water parted. It began when the people stopped. And what is already moving in your situation did not begin when things became visible. It began the moment you let go. Before I show you the final layer of this, the deepest truth that holds everything together, there is one more thing I need to place in front of you. Because without it, what comes next will not land the way it is designed to. This final piece is the reason this message exists for you today. There is a second Hebrew word I want to give you. The first was Raphah, the active releasing of what your hands have been gripping, the deliberate choice to let go. But there is another word used for the kind of still that comes after the releasing, a still that is not produced by discipline, but by encounter. The word is damam. And damam does not describe someone who chose to stop talking. It describes someone who has been made silent by the scale of what they are witnessing. Someone struck dumb with awe. It is the stillness that arrives when you have seen enough of what God is doing behind the scenes, that speech becomes not just unnecessary, but genuinely impossible. This is what God is producing in you in this season. Not just the practice of Raphah, not just the discipline of letting go, but the arrival of damam. A quiet that is not empty. A silence that is filled to the edges with the presence of something you are beginning, slowly, to recognize as being already in motion on your behalf. The sound of your situation is changing. You may not be able to hear it yet, but in the frequency beneath what is visible, something has already begun to move. Now I want to speak to something that has been sitting underneath this entire conversation. The urge to reach for the situation, the pull toward controlling, toward managing, toward doing something, is not a character flaw. It is not evidence of weak faith. It is intelligence. It is the survival skill that was formed in you during years when there was no one else to carry things, when waiting meant losing, when being still meant being left behind. Your reaching came from love. It came from care. It came from the very devotion that defines who you are. God does not condemn the instinct. He is upgrading it. And here is something practical that I want to leave with you for the days ahead. The next time the urge rises to send the message, to force the resolution, to step in and manage what is already being managed, write it down. Just the specific thing you felt you had to do. Then, wait 40 hours before you revisit it. Not 40 days, 40 hours. You will find, more times than not, that when you come back to what you wrote, the thing you felt was urgent no longer needs your hand at all. God moved in the gap. And before any response, any time the pull toward action becomes loud, ask yourself 3 honest questions. Did God give this battle to me? Or is He fighting it for me? Am I about to move from faith or from fear? And if I did absolutely nothing for the next 48 hours, what is the worst thing that would actually happen? Most of the time, the honest answer to that last question dissolves the urgency before it can become a mistake. And now the permission. Because some of you have been carrying a weight you were not designed to carry, and no one has said this to you clearly enough. You are allowed to let go of this. You are allowed to stop managing what God said He is managing. You are allowed to trust a process you cannot yet see the end of. You are allowed to be the chosen one who did not touch it, who held Raphah when every voice in the room said to break. And what comes next belongs to you. Not because you held on tightly enough, but because you finally opened your hands. Now, let me anchor what you have just received before we go further. You came into this message knowing something in your life was being held still and not fully understanding why. Here is what you are walking away with. You now have 5 signs that confirm the divine directive is on you. You understand that your stillness is not absence. It is the active posture of Raphah, wings spread wide, waiting for a thermal that is already forming beneath you. You understand that while you wait, God is clearing your path, building your table, and timing the people moving toward your exact location. And you understand that the dhammam, the quieting that is coming over you, is not emptiness. It is the sound of something magnificent being built in your name. That is not a feeling, that is a framework. Now carry it. Now, I want to show you something that speaks directly to one of the most common challenges chosen ones face in seasons exactly like the one you are in. Because the truth you just received lives in your spirit. But the noise that fights it lives in your brain. And those are not always working together. A neuroscientist spent more than 3 decades mapping what happens inside the human brain during what he identified as the genius state, a condition of expanded clarity, deep intuition, and precise discernment that every person is born with, and that most people spend the rest of their lives trying to find their way back to. His name is Dr. Robert Lake, and what his research uncovered, developed alongside teams at institutions, including MIT and Princeton, changes the way you understand not just mental performance, but the very experience of spiritual stillness. In a brain running on stress with cortisol elevated and fight-or-flight chemistry fully active, the higher functions go offline, not partially, substantially. The capacity for nuanced discernment, for the kind of internal listening that allows you to hear which direction is right, for the quiet knowing that separates a chosen one's guidance from the noise of fear, all of it becomes inaccessible when your brain is in survival mode. And the reason so many chosen ones struggle to maintain the stillness they know in their spirit is not a failure of faith. Their brain has been running on a frequency designed for emergency. And a brain in emergency cannot sustain Raphah, no matter how much the spirit understands it. Dr. Lake's research identified the specific frequency that cuts through survival chemistry, the gamma wave state. Gamma is the brain's clearest signal, associated with the deepest clarity, the most accurate intuition, the moments people describe as being led rather than straining. Children are born with gamma as their dominant frequency. But something happens between early childhood and the life most adults are living by the time they need it most. What Dr. Lake calls the decline effect. The slow suppression of gamma, replaced by the noise of a brain in constant, low-level threat response. By the time most people are navigating the kind of situation we have been talking about today, their brain has been running below its designed frequency for years. What Dr. Lake developed, after more than 3 decades of that research, is a 7-minute audio track engineered to retrain the brain's dominant frequency back to gamma. It is called the Genius Song. You listen with headphones, in stillness, for 7 minutes a day. No additional practice required. No journaling, no technique, no extra effort. The technology does what your brain would do naturally if the decline effect had never occurred. It restores the frequency you were born with. Over 18,000 people have used it, and the rate at which people return for a refund after listening, after actually using it, is under 4%. Over 96 out of every 100 people who try it choose to keep it. That is not a comfortable number to claim unless it is accurate. It is accurate. The standard price for the Genius Song is $49. For those watching this message, the price is $39. That price exists only through the link in the description and the pinned comment below. It is not available on Amazon, not available through any other source, and not available at any other price anywhere else. When you access it, 4 additional resources come with it at no extra cost. A separate audio calibrated specifically for children, valued at $19, designed to support the generation coming up before the decline effect takes root in them. The original book, that provided the foundation for the film, The Secret, the actual source text, valued at $20 on its own. A 22-minute guided visualization moving across 4 areas of life: finances, relationships, health, and inner peace, valued at $29. And a simple infographic of the 5 daily habits that keep gamma activated long after the initial reactivation, valued at $12. 4 bonuses, $80 in additional value, included with your $39 access. There is an unconditional money-back guarantee. No conditions, no time limit, no questions. If it does not serve you in any way, you receive a full refund. There is no risk in receiving what 34 years of research produced. One thing I want to make clear: the only legitimate source for The Genius Song is chosenfrequency.com. The link will be in the description and in the pinned comment below this message. Do not search for it elsewhere. There are no authorized versions outside that source. Protect your access by going directly there, and only if you feel led. The Genius Song. If your spirit is resonating, if something in you already recognizes this as something you need, in this specific season, the link is waiting. Now let me tell you about someone. I will not use a name, but this account stays with me. A man was in the middle of a business dispute that had the potential to end what he had spent more than a decade building. A partner had broken an agreement. The financial loss was significant, close to $90,000. Every advisor in his life told him the same thing: respond immediately, file legal action, defend your name publicly before the narrative gets away from you. He chose 40 days of silence instead, not because he was passive, not because he lacked resources to fight, because something in him heard the directive with unusual clarity: do not touch it. Do not reach for this one. Let it be handled by hands that are already on it. On day 38, without any legal filing, without any public statement, without a single confrontation, the partner called him. Voluntarily, returned the full amount, with an apology. He let God be the lawyer in a courtroom he was never supposed to enter. That is what Raphah produces when you hold it long enough. And now, before we close, I want to take you somewhere. You do not need to move. You do not need to do anything with your body except what it is already doing. Just let this land inside you. In your mind, I want you to stand at the edge of water. A wide, open body of water stretching further than you can see. Behind you, everything that has been pressing you toward action. Every voice, every fear, every deadline that felt urgently manufactured. In front of you, stillness, open water. Your hands are completely empty. Nothing to hold, nothing to manage, nothing to carry. Do not move. Just stand there, open hands, and watch. Because in the invisible space around you, something has already begun to shift. You did not cause it with effort. You did not earn it with strategy. You made room for it by finally, completely letting go. That shift is real. It is happening now. Let it settle into you for a moment before we close. Now let me finish this the way it needs to be finished. Chosen one, I see what you came in carrying. I see the weight of the waiting, the cost of the silence, the slow exhaustion that comes from holding Raphah in a world that prizes action above all things. And I want to witness it without rushing past it. You have been faithful in ways that no one around you has fully seen. Not a moment of that faithfulness has been invisible to the one who placed the calling on you. Right now, in this moment, let something go. Not the situation, not the outcome, but the sense of personal responsibility for an outcome that was never yours to manufacture. Picture it, leaving your shoulders, not dramatically, not with effort, just release. The one who is actually holding this does not need your help to hold it. He needs your trust. And I hear the Father speaking something specific over you as this closes. Hear this. You have been faithful in your stillness. What you were not permitted to touch has already been moved. What comes next will carry my fingerprints, not yours. And when you look back on this season from the other side, you will know you did not win by fighting. You won by finally trusting that I was already winning for you. You are covered. You are commissioned. You are carried. There is a peace, what some have called the destiny's embrace of God, a peace that passes all understanding, that does not require explanation and cannot be taken by the same hands that tried to disrupt this season. That peace is already resting on you now, not because of what you did, because of whose you are. All across the world, right now, chosen ones are holding the same stillness you are holding. You are not alone in this. The open hands you have learned to offer in this season are the same open hands that chosen ones on every continent have offered in seasons just like yours. You are part of something far larger than what you can see from where you are standing, and so it is. If this message reached something real in you today, type the word "still" in the comments right now, just that one word. Let it be your declaration, and let it connect you to every other chosen one, leaving that same word beneath this message in this same moment. If this served you, consider sharing it with someone who has been carrying something too heavy for too long in silence, someone who has gone a little quieter than usual, who seems to be in a season they cannot explain to anyone around them. You do not have to say anything when you send it. They will know why you thought of them. If this space speaks to where you are, come back. There is more being released, and the next message is already being prepared for you.